Countdown Conspiracy, Chapter 13, Part 2. In this moment, I'm not sure I could suspect Linnea of hurting a mosquito, much less organizing a string of deadly attacks. A smile breaks over my face. Thank you. Next to them, Mr. Burnett's eyes shimmer. Mr. Burnett? I ask. Are you? He clears his throat and smiles. That was really thoughtful of you both, Mr. Burnett says to Lizzie and Kreshkov. I'll go find Dr. Schubert and let him know the good news. He retreats before I can question him any further. My eyes narrow. This is the last straw. Dr. Schubert's weird warnings and Mr. Burnett's jumpy behavior. Does Dr. Schubert know Mr. Burnett suspects what's going on around here? Does Mr. Burnett know Dr. Schubert's been warning me? Either way, why haven't either of them done anything useful with their knowledge other than use it to freak me out? My resolve strengthens. After this practical exam, I need to talk the team into confronting Mr. Burnett in person. It's time to get some straight answers, and I get the feeling we can make Mr. Burnett talk. 2 hours later, I zip up the front of my flight suit and look at myself in my mirror. I have to admit, I look pretty awesome. Well, except for my head. My CCA, Communications Carrier Assembly, or fancy phrase for cloth helmet, sits over most of my hair, but not all of it. A few strands stick out. I straighten out the orange paneling along the front of my body. As I do, I can feel the light tubing it's in my first layer of net-like clothing shift. The rubber layer over it squeaks. Ready, Ruby? I ask. My MechBot sits on her table, having just finished her diagnostics. She bobs her head at me. I bend down awkwardly in the big suit, and she climbs onto my back, hooking 4 of her 10 appendages into the special clasps Lizzie asked the suit engineers to include. I can do this, I say, taking one last look in the mirror. I got this. I won't mess up. Mirror me's expression isn't very reassuring, so I quickly turn away and walk out the door. Anna is already in the common room waiting. We're going to be late, she says. I start to defend myself, but then she glares at Najma's still closed door. At least you're out here. I was sure you'd be last. Najma walks out. Are we all ready? She asks. Her helmet is held under her arm, and her hair looks way better tucked into its CCA than mine does. We've been ready, Anna says. Lizzie comes into the dorm. Sounds like the 3 of you are set to go. She beams at all of us. You all look awesome. Just plain awesome. And Miranda, I can't wait to see you in your full EMU. You ready for the quick change? I nod. Now that I've got my suit again, Tamaki and I will be graded on putting on our full extravehicular mobility units during the practical, while the others get graded on helping us. Honestly, that's the part of all this I'm least nervous about. Lizzie snaps a quick picture of us with her droidlet. Great! I'll walk you over. I'm excited to see you all work as a team today. Anna opens our door and heads out, scoffing under her breath. I ignore her and follow Najma out the door. Lizzie drops in step behind us. We walk through the halls to the lobby, photos of past astronaut teams flanking us. As we step out into the cold and the dark, mock paparazzi take our pictures, and an entire security task force surrounds us. Tamaki and Raheem approach from behind, and I look around once they've joined us. Where's Esteban? Miranda! My little sister calls out. She and my parents stand off to the side in a crowd with our professors and the other families. Emmeline dashes towards me in her thick purple coat. A security agent steps forward to stop her, and I shoot him a glare. He notices and retreats back a couple of paces to give us room. Sorry, reflex, he mutters. Hey there, Emmeline. I set down my helmet to grab my sister and lift her up into the air. I regret my decision about a half a second into the lift. My flight suit is heavy enough, and my sister isn't nearly as light as she used to be. I set her back down quickly. You ready to watch your big sister blast off? You're not really blasting off. Emmeline struggles to get out of my grip as her feet land back on the ground. Mom said so. She said this is just practice. And she's right, I say. The other cadets pause around me, and I throw them a sheepish grin. Just a second, guys. Then I kneel down with Emmeline. So, are you ready to watch your big sister pretend to blast off? Yes, but next time you need to come home, okay? It's weird that it's night in the middle of the afternoon, and it's so cold. She shivers dramatically, and I laugh again. I will if they let me. I put my helmet over my sister's head. There. Now you look like you could lend us a hand. Ready? Hey, Emmeline giggles. I can't see in here. Miranda, Anna says. Come on, we can't waste time. Let her have her moment, Raheem says. I look up at him in surprise. He smiles as Emmeline takes my helmet off. She's cute. I glance over to where his family stands, my eyes falling on Raheem's two little sisters. Okay, Emmeline. I turn back to her. I've got to go now. Okay, fine. Hey, can we play with your room's touch table when you're done? Sure, once I'm done. I take my helmet from Emmeline and then send her back toward our parents. Walking on, I pass the hangar and head toward the boat dock. A flock of terns flies overhead, fighting the wind. Najma, Anna, Tamaki, and our mentors have gotten ahead of Raheem and me, and we hurry to catch up. But before we do, Esteban intercepts us. Miranda! He shoves his tablet at me. It's Mr. Burnett! I blink. What? Esteban's glowing tablet screen is covered in lines of code. My program finally finished. I wanted to find you earlier, but Lizzie said I couldn't go to your rooms when you were changing. But it's Mr. Burnett. He's the one that was sending you messages. Mr. Burnett? I repeat. Of course, Raheem nods in comprehension. Dr. Sheever didn't make your quiz. Mr. Burnett's his grad student. I bet he did. He must have had to switch methods to talk to you when you weren't getting the World Window messages, Esteban says. Wind blasts past us, stinging my raw cheeks. I glance back at the security team following us, but the howling wind makes me doubt they heard any of what Esteban said. Meanwhile, thoughts crash over each other like overlapping waves inside my head. This changes everything. It hasn't been Dr. Schuber warning me at all. It's been Mr. Burnett since day one. He's the only one who's been trying to help me, while also having to deal with the paranoia of knowing what's going on and keeping his knowledge secret, which means Dr. Schuber never knew anything about any of this. Either that or... Guys, I shudder, remembering the conversation I overheard between Mr. Burnett and Lizzie in the kitchen all those weeks ago. Why didn't I see this before? What if Mr. Burnett knows because he's close to Dr. Schuber? Esteban frowns. But if he knows who Dr. Schuber told about your replacement, why wouldn't he go to the ISECG when he found out they were trying to hurt you? I shake my head. No, I don't mean Mr. Burnett knows who Dr. Schuber told. I mean he knows Dr. Schuber. The boys both look at me. There's a motive there, a motive that makes me feel like I'm going to throw up. I swallow, trying to steady my stomach. Dr. Schuber wasn't warning me about the attacks. He wasn't trying to look out for me. Mr. Burnett was. The queasy feeling gets worse. Maybe everyone's been right all along. The United States probably did force Dr. Schuber and the ISUCG to pick me, and maybe this is their way of trying to get rid of me. Raheem's eyes widen. Everything okay back here? A voice asks, and I nearly jump out of my flight suit. It's Dr. Schuber. Grip my helmet and stare up at him. My response is a dead giveaway that we've been talking about something secret, but I can't help myself. Everything's great, Esteban gushes. From anyone else, it would have seemed suspicious, but from Esteban, it's totally believable. Ready for our practical. Glad to hear it, Dr. Schubert says. Better catch up to everyone else. They're already at the launch pad. The three of us follow the professor. Esteban keeps shooting me looks, but if I acknowledge him, I know he'll end up saying something revealing. We can't afford that right now. I think back to Mr. Burnett's reaction to my suit earlier. What exactly is going on? What is Dr. Schubert planning? Here's where you'd usually get briefed by Mission Control, Lizzie says, interrupting my thoughts as we arrive at the helicopters. She's clearly already begun talking to the other 3 cadets. But we'll save that part of practice for a later exam. Today, just concentrate on launch procedures. Kreshkov nods by her side. After the countdown is complete, Mission Control will talk to you as if you've lifted off. We expect you to act like you have, and go through all procedures until you've reached the thermosphere. If the ISCCG is behind all this stuff, maybe Kreshkov is innocent. And that makes Sasha innocent. That still doesn't explain why Sasha's dropped off the face of the planet. At that point, you proceed with Miranda and Tamaki's quick change, Kreshkov continues, and then we'll end the simulation, and you 6 will be allowed to leave the spaceplane to meet with us and get your grades. But don't let the grading part of this get to you, Lizzie interjects. Seriously, use this as a practice. The grades will only reflect which areas require more training and go toward determining if we've made the right decision regarding your individual job assignments. I grip my helmet with my right hand. Even with everything else going on, I can't help but worry about my place in the group. Please don't take Flight Engineer away from me. Speaking of, Lizzie looks at me as if she's read my mind. We really should all give a big thanks to Miranda. She's stayed late every night working to get your spaceplane as operational as possible. I can tell my face is red, and not just from the windburn. Indeed, Dr. Schubert says from behind me. Kudos to Miranda. I turn and he smiles at me, but it's a fake smile and alarm bells go off in my head. And to all of you, the professor continues, that when we're done with this practical exam, perhaps one of you could enlighten me as to why you've been trying to break into my email. Dr. Schubert holds up his tablet. A flashing red X flickers in the left-hand corner. Got this notice last night. His eyes fall on Najma, and she starts to tremble in her flight suit. Oh, goodness. He knows. Keep it together, Najma. I wheel my thoughts at my friend. We all remain silent. Anyhow, it's time to go. Dr. Schubert gestures to the helicopters, which are lined up next to the helijets that brought our families here. Only there was a way I could tell the others about my new suspicions without Dr. Schubert noticing. I wish Mr. Burnett was here. I look around for my newly unmasked secret messenger. Where is he, anyway? Do your best. We'll talk about this breach in trust later, our professor finishes, rolling up his tablet and tucking it behind his back. Good luck, Lizzie says brightly, a complete contrast to the head of the ISCCG. I have every confidence you will do well, Kreshkov adds.